Hello, and welcome to another episode of Hacking with Friends. Today we are joined by my co-host and part-time Juggalo event organizer, Michael.
And this is our code monkey, Kody.
I accept that.
Yes.
All right, and today... Hello, and welcome to another episode of Hacking with Friends. Today we are joined by my co-host and part-time Juggalo event organizer, Michael.
And this is our code monkey, Kody.
I accept that.
Yes.
All right, and today we're going to be talking about something we've gotten some comments about on our YouTube channel. Now, these comments are pointing out the fact that when we do demonstrations that involve brute forcing, we usually use a password list that is relatively short and, hint, hint, contains the right password. Now, today we're going to go into the way that brute forcing works and how password generation works. So you can create your own custom password lists that are meant specifically for a target that will be incredibly effective against anyone who bases their passwords on things that they say, believe, or otherwise put out publicly. Now, of course, when we do these demonstrations, we usually use a short password list because we want to do a live stream where we respect your time. And a lot of the time, if you have a password list of like 1 billion passwords and a good sturdy computer, you can burn through that in a relatively short period of time and get even obscure passwords, provided that they are somewhere in one of these password lists.
Short being measured in hours still.
Yes, short being measured in hours. But I will say with a MacBook Pro, I've gotten through 1 billion passwords before in like a day and a half or so. So, you know, it really depends on what you're trying to crack, whether it's an online or offline attack, and what your password list looks like. And it's better to have these password lists that are customized. There's any information you already have. For example, like there's a lot of routers that automatically like set up their own passwords that seem random, but if you know what the format for these are, it's actually not so random, and you can start to brute force them much more effectively and reduce the amount of guesses you need by figuring out the format of a password.
That's something I've always thought about, especially with like certain ISPs. They'll always provide their routers with, you know, it's like 2 words and a 3-digit number. It's like if you could just get a sample size of 1,000 or so of those passwords, you could figure out which words are in those dictionaries and just randomly generate all the passwords possible.
I mean, with the sample size of 2, you can usually figure out what the format is.
The format,
and just be like, all right, these are the only things that change. It's still, you know, like a word, another word, and then like this, and like only these 2 are capitalized. It's like, okay, well, if that's always the format, then we just eliminated tons and tons of potential passwords. So a lot of people point out that it's not really a brute force attack, it's a word list attack. Well, like in most cases, you're going to want to go the route of least resistance. Now, if people were to set a perfectly random secure password and they were like security professionals, like let's say that they're using a password manager to generate like passwords that are this long and they're totally random, weird characters. Like you would need to brute force to get that. You would not be able to use a word list for that. But most people are not like that. And I mean, we don't guarantee this is going to work 100% of the time, but most people want to remember the password in their brain. So they will pick something that is easy to remember, maybe a word or 2 words with varied capitalization, maybe a number at the end, or maybe leet speak because people think that that's helpful.
Yeah, there's an old XKCD whatever comic about that exact thing, and the whole premise in that comic is the idea that it's impossible to remember a random string of numbers, but if you were to use like 4 random unassociated words, while yes, you could potentially become vulnerable to dictionary style attacks, which we'll go into, you can also make a password that's longer. And really the best thing you can do to make your password harder to guess is the length of the password, because you're going to imagine each extra character exponentially increases the amount of possible passwords there are.
Right. And of course, there are exceptions to this. Really common phrases, song lyrics, and just, you know, dictionary words stacked together like are not going to perform as well as things that are mixed up and randomized. But today, we're going to be talking about really how the best password lists are created and what tools out there allow you to make a password list that will perform much better than a straight up brute force attack. Now, when I talk about going through 1 billion passwords, I'm not talking about completely random passwords. I'm talking about the billion worst passwords that are out there, which have been organized by helpful hackers onto sources like GitHub and other places that you can download and peruse through and see what the worst passwords in the world really look like. And I find this to be very informative because if you see any of your passwords on this list, then it's probably time that you update them because they might have been leaked a long time ago, or maybe just other people out there think, like you, and just thought of the same thing and happened to leak it for you. A lot of the time, if people aren't especially creative, there's passwords that are just based on lame stuff. Again, like song lyrics, or presidents, or years, or their dog's name, or like a video game.
And in fact, we're going to take advantage of a lot of that sort of stuff today, later on.
Right, so there's 2 kind of approaches here. Oh, well, 3 kind of approaches here, I guess. There's a brute force attack, which is just trying everything within a key space. You try every random character, and if you can do these sorts of attacks, they're computationally and resource expensive, but you can get even those passwords that seem really hard to get. It's just there's limits. I mean, unless you're using like a quantum computer, when it comes to the key space. So if it's very, very long, then it becomes harder to get.
Right.
The second thing we're going to be talking about is breached or leaked password lists. These are word lists that are available online, and these are basically things that have been breached over time from various services and compiled with the duplicates eliminated. So we end up with a list of the most commonly reused passwords that people in the real world use. And this eliminates a lot of the hassle around creating our own, pseudo like fake passwords and trying them. Because unlike generative techniques where we're just creating password lists from scratch, we know that real people use these passwords, and there's a pretty strong probability that they've either been reused or they might be reused by other people that are into the same stuff that caused the original person to come up with that password, be it a local radio station or like a TV character or something like that. Odds are eventually one of those passwords will get breached or float to the top of a list of bad passwords, and all these fans of like Lost or whatever that base their password on some random character or some random event, like they think like, oh, I'm so smart, but like so many people like that show that like it's bound to be like a store, like a list of passwords just from that show that have been breached that a lot of people might still reuse. So these are the kinds of niche things that make breached password lists, our second category, really cool and really useful. Now the third category we're going to go through today are like OSINT based generative style password lists, and this is where there were some recent news about the president having his Twitter account breached, and it stands to reason that this third type of approach would perform very, very well against people who pick passwords the way that he did. So allegedly what had happened was the passwords in use were basically slogans from the campaign, which are used everywhere. It's all over his personal website.
His favorite sayings.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like a reel of best sayings. And anybody can scrape these sayings from his website, whatever else. So if we are somebody who thinks that, hey, this person probably is going to create a password based on something they talk about all the time, they think about all the time, maybe they're a little single-minded, then you can scrape their information, take those words and use it to generate passwords that are based on that person's interests. And there's there's some approaches to this. There's the ones where you scrape the information, just use raw words. There's also where you can just input things that are very likely, campaign slogans, people's names, birth dates, pets' names. Like it's basically an interactive walkthrough that allows you to put down detailed information that generates a word list then based on permutations of these words that are very, very likely for that person to pick as a password. So these 3 techniques are kind of the dominant way I think of password cracking. Like you either have a highly customized password list that's based on that person's interests and public data they put out there, or you have a password list based on breaches, or you're in the business of having just an insane GPU and CPU setup, or just a bunch of like Amazon credits, I guess. Yeah. And you're just gonna like roar through the entire key space and try to actually brute force it. I'm not really in the business of the first one. We're going to focus more on the other 2 today because for me, those are the more interesting ones for brute forcing.
Kind of to tie into that, like the way I think of it is like spear phishing versus phishing with a net. Like so you have 2 general types, as you were kind of saying, like the most common passwords used by people on the internet, and really what that's going to be used more for is like you have a hash database from some website that got compromised or something like that, and you're just running that password list against all of those hashes, and you're going to get like 30 or 40% of them or something like that. That's kind of like what I think of as like the net phishing. But then the other side of this is the word list, where, as Kody was describing, you're really doing a lot of social engineering or open source intelligence to really dive into what a particular target might have as their password, and you're catering that word list specifically to that one individual. So you're not just like, sure, you could throw that, most popular list at them, and you might have some opportunity there, but you're going to have a much higher chance of successfully cracking that password when you use something that's more tailored to them. And, honestly, like what I always tell people is just use best practice, make your password as long as possible, use a password manager, and you don't really have to fear too much from this unless you know specifically you're a kind of individual that is likely to be targeted. So if you are frequenting forums and talking about how elite you are and challenging people to hack you, or if you're
Don't do that.
Yeah, if you're a CEO of like a mid or high level company, or like in that top rung of leadership, if you have people in your life, significant others or anyone like that are prone to hacking and that sort of thing, then that's when you really need to be careful about your security and actually worry about like the kinds of attacks we're talking about today, where they're making customized word lists. Obviously, like, try to avoid using any words that are clearly associated with you, right? Like, don't use your high school or your mom's maiden name or stuff like that, because like any Joe is gonna guess that pretty quickly. But yeah, so do we want to actually get started?
No, not yet. Keep talking, because I actually forgot to change the. So I was also going to mention there's a couple different things that this is useful for.
Mm-hmm.
And if we want to go into like what people use this for, I was talking about examples where we're doing online and offline password attacks. So what that means is we're basically having a service, maybe SSH, or there's something going on where we have access to something that's online and we're throwing password attempts at it, and it can try to like limit us in what we can do, how many connection attempts we can make. But really, the attack is direct. Now, there's another type of attack where we can take a Wi-Fi password handshake, like a hash of a password, and we can offline start to attack it. And this was kind of what also Michael was alluding to when he mentioned breached databases. So the two different types of offline password attacks that I know that might be useful is, for one, Wi-Fi password attacks, when you get a hash on the password and you want to try a really, really big password list to try to attack it. The other would be, let's say that you're a black hat hacker and you want to break into people's accounts, and there's been a breach where you either gain access to a database that is of passwords but it's hashed, or it's just dumped on the internet, or it's available for sale on a forum. So if you get access to a hash password list, you don't actually have access to the passwords. You basically have a signature for the passwords. And if you know the algorithm that was used to create that signature, you could run a big password list through a password cracking application and basically reverse the password from that hash, and then be able to break into that person's account, or potentially other accounts that email address or whatever other information was associated with it has on the internet, because people like to reuse passwords. So this is how, if one website has its database breached, suddenly if you reuse that password in other places, people might actually attempt to log in and do something with that account, because you reuse the password from one that they managed to reverse for a completely different service. Yeah. So it's pretty spooky.
Yeah, and also that's something we can talk about when I'm talking about like making custom word lists, is you may want to carefully consider who you're actually targeting, because your actual target may not be the best opportunity you have. For example, I've talked about this in other live streams, but if you're willing to use a tangential target as a pivot, so maybe the CEO, he's got really good IT people telling him this, he's got his stuff locked down, but maybe his wife or his daughter, or like someone in his inner circle, is less savvy about security. So you target them first, and then once you gain access to their accounts, the hacker would then use a social engineering attack, maybe be like, oh, hey, I got locked out of my account, I need you to do this thing for me, and then that thing actually gives them access to the CEO person's account. So there are other strategies that a savvy hacker might use in the real world too, because we've seen examples of this, particularly when there's nation-state hackers trying to gain access to like utilities and other like industrial and commercial systems, which people, should have locked down.
Okay, you can stop stalling. I've now successfully changed the password to the Raspberry Pi, so guess what, bro? You're locked out. Now, if you want to get into this Raspberry Pi behind us that's scrolling all the mysterious code, we're going to have to generate a password list and break our way into it.
Okay.
And I actually forgot what the password is, so it's literally the only way that we can back in. I just picked it from the list.
Nice. Okay.
But it was long, so theoretically it should be really secure.
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to switch to your screen real quick, and then I'm going to switch.
Sure.
Okay. Over to my screen.
All right.
Okay. So anyway, now we're on my screen. Something I just wanted to point out real quick when I wasn't quite stalling, but is you should always check your password because you never know when it's been in one of these breaches.
Wait. Sorry. You should never put your password into an online forum or website that pretends to check your password.
Okay, correct.
But do check your accounts for password breaches. Sorry, just want to be very clear about that. There's some researchers who have just done studies to see if people will put their real password into a check to see how secure my password is.
That is actually really clever.
Where it emails you the results, which is they get your email and your password. They can log into most of your stuff probably. Yeah. The results were depressing. So please do not put your password, your actual password, into a password auditor, I guess we would call it.
Right, yeah. But have I been pwned? Good. That's Troy Hunt, right, I think?
Yeah, Troy Hunt. So Troy Hunt actually sponsored our channel before, so thank you very much, Troy Hunt. And this is his project where he compiles a bunch of databases of breached websites and lets you know whether your email address was involved. And he also lets you know what kind of data was involved in the breach. This is also transformed from Altego. The data has really been made very liberally available. And I have to say, I've encountered businesses that use data from breaches very unethically, and this is one of the most ethical projects I've seen because it gives people power over their data and it lets them know when something bad has happened. So I really like this project. So to Troy Hunt, thank you very much for running this. We're huge fans of this project, and we use it very often to show people where they might be vulnerable or what kind of accounts might have exposed them in other ways.
Okay, but anyway, so where do hackers actually get password lists? And
wait, no, type something into it.
No, I'm not gonna.
No, just do like Zuckerberg at Facebook.com.
Don't even know how to spell Zuckerberg.
ZUCK. At gmail.com.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's his. Oh no, it's been pwned.
Oh no.
All right, scroll down.
Yeah.
Scroll down.
Oh wait.
What is Zuck into? All right. Club Penguin. That's so sad. All right. So if you were poor Zuckerberg, then your Club Penguin password could be used against you. Your Lost FM, your Edmodo, your whatever that is, Stratific.
Yeah, I feel like this isn't Mark Zuckerberg's actual account.
Well, of course not, Michael. You're ruining the joke. But yes. Wait, what is that top game? Is he into RPGs?
Town of Salem.
Ooh. But yeah. Also, by the way, this is an awesome technique unintentionally. Thanks, Troy Hunt. So if you want to know the kinds of stuff that people are signed up for,
I never thought about
identified
it that way.
a SpaceX engineer who had breached a ton of her passwords using her work account on a World of War, a Lord of the Rings forum that she was hardcore into. So we identified her as a potential lowest hanging fruit for attack because it was just obvious that she was really interested in this one thing because of the accounts that had been breached. So if you want to know what people know about you just by putting your email address in, check it out.
That's really clever. Because you could write a phishing email for Lord of the Rings online or whatever.
Stop. Leave the woman alone.
yeah. I'm just talking in general.
Hard at work. She doesn't need this.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
But anyway.
So
how password lists are found.
This is how password lists are kind of created. Now people are always like, "Excuse me, sir, I have a doubt. I do not know where to find password lists." And I'm like, "Okay, Google password list." Because this is the first result. If you Google password list GitHub, this is the first result. But if you need help, then you can always go to the sec list here. Michael sometimes says this with a bit of an accent, so I'll be clear here. Sec lists. You want to be very clear about what you're typing in here. SECLISTS.
Yeah.
Anything else, we are not endorsing. So when you go to the sec list, which is short for security list and nothing else, then you can see that there are a list of word lists that are targeted towards specific things. So there's a lot of these word lists, for example, that are completely useless for getting a WPA password. Why would that be, Michael?
Why would they be useless for a WPA password? maybe because of like the format they're presented in.
Yeah, sort of. Very, very close.
I know a lot of these are like from specific categories. So some of them are like usernames, some of them are
Right.
user passwords.
Right.
So user passwords from websites may not be applicable to. I don't know what you're going for exactly.
So it's about the format of the password, the format requirements for Wi-Fi.
For Wi-Fi.
Yeah. What's the shortest Wi-Fi password you've ever set?
I don't know. That is a good question. Like 6 characters, maybe?
8 characters.
8 characters.
So so for Wi-Fi specifically, there's a minimum. So any password set that has
Yeah.
characters that are less than 8 characters,
that is
are the
true.
passwords that
Yeah.
are less than 8 characters, useless. Don't
Yeah,
use them
and one of
for
the-
that application. But then again, if we're setting the SSH password on this Raspberry Pi, it can be very short. I actually don't know what the minimum is. But it can be as short as whatever the system password is.
And we'll actually touch on that later because at least one of the tools, I think 2 of them, will allow me to set minimum character lengths. So that way it'll just chop off any that are shorter or mangle them until they're longer, if that makes sense. But yeah, so basically the key point here is if you're wanting to find password or word lists, then the easiest thing to do is just use a little Google foo. Obviously, this is the most popular one, and as you can see, there are a ton here. The one I downloaded and I'm going to be using somewhat today, I think, is this one, 10 million.
Yeah, those are the ones we use for competitions, by the way. So anytime we do like a Wi-Fi cracking event, we literally use these password lists from this GitHub. So very, very popular. Also, can you make your screen bigger, the text?
Command plus.
Boop, boop, boop. Yep, do it. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, cool. Now we're using all that space. But yeah, so these password lists, you can start with the top 10 million, but if you go up a little bit to the folders, take a look at the folders and you can see Wi-Fi WPA. Can you click on that? So within the Wi-Fi WPA, like all the passwords that are on the top level, like those are great, but they're not necessarily filtered for WPA.
Wait, is that only 4,800?
Yeah, but it's the top 4,800.
Oh,
some of them
I
are
love
gonna,
that password
some of them are going to be curse words, so get off of it.
Yeah.
We tried to do this at the RSA conference, and people pick some nasty passwords. I have to say,
that is true.
you guys really need to chill out on some of these passwords. There were some words we definitely cannot show on the stream. So I had to go through and use like different password lists because like some of them would like flash really quickly on the screen at RSA, and executives would be like, oh, sorry. So they're real passwords.
Yeah.
So the game's real. There are WPA specific password lists, and because I mostly do Wi-Fi hacking, I'm going to harp on this. Like if you're looking for a password list for WPA, you're not going to find it necessarily on this list unless you're willing to accept a shorter one. There are ones that are specifically for WPA2 that are, perfect, and you'll find them on GitHub as well.
Yeah, and for actual black hat hackers and those sorts of people, there are also other places such as the darknet and various forums that they'll go to.
And by the way, if you need to access the darknet, you need 2 things: Tor and a black Ethernet cable.
Oh, no. Why isn't it not popping up right? Okay, I won't be able to show that. But anyway, just trust us. There are these forums, and like even on the public internet, you can go to. And
by the way, I have to explicitly state we don't endorse any forum or going to password cracking forums or buying password lists off of cracking forums. Micah was merely illustrating the fact that they exist.
Yes.
While for some reason still going to one specific one. But anyway.
I had it loaded
when
before.
password lists are breached, they're usually breached in one of 2 ways. They're either dumped, which means they're put on Pastebin or put onto one of these forums, or they're sold, which means that there are marketplaces, which we will not link to, where you can actually just buy these password lists. And that's frequently where, let's just say like businesses with a lot of money will go and buy the stuff and then build products based on like, knowing other people's passwords.
Yeah. There's companies that do that, and then there are also going to be black hat hackers out there who will go around the darknet and these forums. And what I had one specific kind of example of what they'll do, and they'll combine all these lists, and then they'll remove all the duplicates and do various modifications like that to try to really make the word list. Because as we were talking about, there are situations where obviously there's always this challenge when you're making a word list. You want it to be longer so you are statistically more likely to get the correct password. Then also at the same time, you might be fighting some kind of arbitrary limit, whether that be in the size of the word list, just because you're loading this into RAM or something like that, so you can't have, a 3 terabyte word list. That would be an insane word list, by the way. But then also if they're being rate limited, So say someone were using a word list on like Instagram or some other website.
Like an online password attack.
Online password attack. Those sites will rate limit you. To get around that, you can use proxies, but proxies also cost money and are expensive. So there is a physical limit to the number of passwords you can really guess in a given amount of time. So you do want to be more targeted, and that's why you are going to create these more targeted
Okay,
lists.
I want to point out also a couple lists that are of particular interest. So if you guys want to check out some really interesting lists, check out the default credentials list. This is a list of collected credentials that are default for most devices. So if you're just assuming that somebody hasn't changed, for example, their router password, you can go to the default credentials and you'll probably find that most of the default credentials are stored there. Now, another really interesting one is if you want to know what adversaries online are using, check out the honeypot captures. Like these are lists where all the time there are bots that are going around locating services online and automatically trying to log in and infect them. They are run by individuals, they're run by nation states, but if you ever have put up a honeypot, you know that stuff is trying to log into it constantly, and those logins are actually captured and shared with the security community, which is super cool to know. So if you want to know all the password lists that black hat hackers are actually using in their tools, this is a capture of what in the real world is being used to try to break into computers. Does that mean they're all good? No, because amateurs can also do this. But it is interesting to put some feelers out there and start capturing the passwords that are allowing people to break into various services. So super cool to know.
And also if you are making like the sort of like spear phishing, highly targeted word list, you can take a sort of hybrid approach. Like you could organize it such that you use the 10,000 most common passwords at the beginning of that list. So that way, if they do have like one of those really generic passwords, you're going to guess it right off. But then once you kind of cleared past those common passwords, then you're going to start getting into the passwords that are targeted towards that individual specifically. So there are varying approaches you can start there. And so to kind of get started, the first tool that we're going to be using is CUP, or Common User Password Profiler. Yes, profiler. Yeah. But anyway, so this tool's been around for a bit. It's kind of regularly updated. But
when was the last time it was updated? I missed it.
4 months ago.
Wow, that's fresh.
Yeah, that's fresh. And I think the oldest part of it is like 4 years ago. So it was started 4 years ago. But all you'll need to run this tool is Python 3. So like on a Mac, that's already installed. Linux, that's usually already integrated. Windows, you can download it. So this should run on basically any system. And the reason I like CUP is because it has a interface that it walks you through, and it kind of guides you on what information is likely to be used in a password. So we're going to run that first. And let's just clear that. So you need to download it. It's really easy. You can just git clone it. I'm not going to do it because I already have it, but just git clone, and then you just need this URL right here. Oh. So yeah, you just git clone, and it downloads super fast just because it's one little Python file. And then you're going to need to cd into CUP. And once you're there, then we can run it with Python 3. I think Python would work.
I think it's Python 3.
Yeah,
well, I hope so. But because Python 2, no go.
P1. And then you're going to use attack I for the interactive shell. I believe that's all correct. Yeah, here we go. So basically, this is just going to ask us a series of questions about a target. And we're going to generate a word list. And this is what we're going to use as a seed word list for some of the other tools that we're going to use going forward. So for our example today, I just made a quick Facebook profile, kind of just like a random person, and some of the information we could easily find about people like this. And this is very common for people to share this information. Other useful websites include like Instagram, Facebook. Any social media is really going to be ripe for this kind of information. So let's pull up our...
Hey, actually, could we show my screen for a second?
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing I wanted to toss out that I did not realize even existed, but is really cool, is Google Cloud Shell. I'm still kind of exploring this, but it's basically a Debian system that already has like Python and a bunch of other stuff pre-installed.
Cool.
So for some reason, it keeps like booting me out at the moment. But I was able to install Cup in just a couple commands.
Yeah.
I just did. Oh, see, it keeps doing that. But I just did a git clone, and then I was able to CD into it, and then immediately run it, and boom, I'm able to run.
And
the
it looks
program.
like you can just ignore that little message.
Oh yeah, I can. Get out of here. I don't care. Which is pretty cool. So this is just access to like a Debian virtual system that you can run from the browser. So if you want to follow along and just create this, it also creates the file here for you to download. So when it actually creates the password list, you can download it to your computer if you want to. I like that. It's cool.
Okay, so back to mine. So we got, hold up, there we go. So we got Mr. Hoyd here, so we just type Hoyd. If y'all get that reference, then kudos to you. Just because I named it Hoyd, I'm going to name it Hoyd's son here for the. So a nickname. We don't really have a nickname here. For that sort of information, you could easily try to troll through
Oh, I know a couple
comments.
nicknames.
Buck Nasty.
Booger. Yeah.
Bugger.
No, Booger with an O. I've heard people use that nickname.
Ogre?
No, there's two O's, but I'm.
Okay. Yeah, I'm
so
horrible
sad.
at.
There you go. That's the nickname.
Yeah, let's just get it out of the way. I'm horrible at spelling, so we're gonna have a fun time today.
All right.
But also something I wanted to bring up too is we've covered previous tools like Twint, I think, and those are tools for scraping social media websites like Twitter. So something I would highly recommend if you're going to do this, or no, hackers would do if they were doing this, is they might run a tool like that and then just run a simple Python script over that raw Twitter data to see like what words are most commonly used. So you'd obviously sort out the ones like I, me, and with whatever, and look for like nouns and adjectives that they use commonly, and then you can use that later on. So of course, on Facebook you always share your birthday, so you get your little birthday greetings. So where I think that's life events. Yeah, oh no, wait, no.
Ew, why would Facebook publicly display your birthday?
Yeah.
I choose
there
not
we are.
to believe that's
November 11th in 1948. If any of y'all are wondering how I made this profile, by the way, there's a wonderful website, Fake Person Generator. So like if you need to run an example like this anytime, it pours out all kinds of random fake data for you. That is like randomized because, for me, it was very hard to be creative about all this stuff. But we'll go back over here. So that's going to be what? 11/11 and then 1948. And then, so partner's name. And of course, you share that beautiful information on Facebook because you want everyone to see who you're related to. It doesn't actually show who you're in the relationship with. Interesting. So I'm just going to use the
Probably because it hasn't been confirmed by another Facebook user.
That is a good guess. Yeah, because this is just a demo account that I kind of set up to show you like what realistically you would be able to find. So let's just use the sister.
Fanny. Yeah.
Fanny. And Charles. Oh, okay. And then
Fanny Charles.
we don't really have their birth date, so we could just.
Well, they probably have it on their profile, so we could just assume. That
right, that is a good point. Yeah. So in a real OSINT investigation, you could then click on any of these people, and you'd be able to go look at their profile and find their birth date and all that. So I'm just going to skip that, and then I didn't put a child here, so let's just use Terry, and then Spencer because of adopted child, whatever. I'm just trying to show off like kind of how these tools work, because essentially what it's going to do is it's going to make each of these elements as a node, and then it's going to combine these nodes and all the possible permutations that could be generated from that to really get a good idea of the passwords that might be made. So, what's a good dog name?
Fancy.
Fancy, okay. And then we have a company name because, of course, people all... And, like, for the pet's name, you could easily look at their pictures and stuff like that. So, still behind. And then this is where we would add the extra words I was talking about. So if we were to scrape a Twitter or do anything like that. So let's just say yes. And then this guy is really into black juice. So black. Do you want... and so if we knew like they had a favorite number, like maybe if we look through their Facebook and they're always raving about a certain linebacker on a certain football team, then we could put that.
Oh yeah, if they're like a huge sports fan.
Yeah, like numbers like that. There might be other numbers that they're really into, so that's where you would put that sort of stuff. And so leap mode. So leap mode is ostensibly used by like people who want to like look cool and do computery stuff, but also like I think there are a lot of people that think, oh hey, that makes my password so much more secure. I'm just going to use leap speech. So let's go ahead and enable that. And essentially, any characters that have closely resembling numbers, like 3 and E and stuff like that, those will be replaced. And so it's going to make a lot of those permutations. Yes. So here we can see all the different passwords it's generating. It actually generates them a lot faster than this. I don't know if I can make it... I thought it was going to do it a lot faster and print them out. It's an entire sheet. It did not, though.
Hey, while that's doing it, switch over to mine.
Okay.
All right, so I've done the same thing as Michael. You can see that I just finished this for Terry Booger. His company's name is Baroness, and his pet's name is Fang.
Nice.
So if I wanted to do the same thing, I can hyperspeed.
I would not do that, because that's what was doing it really slow.
Boom! Wow, look at how it's going really slow.
Yeah, that's why I said hyperspeed is less than hyperspeed.
I didn't believe you. I thought that this fancy Google box would allow me. I also accidentally put the partner's name in as just like a binary number.
I'm going to show my screen real quick. Because you can see right here like what that kind of leap speech transition stuff looks like. But I'm going back to your screen.
Yeah, good. All right, so for me, I'm also in Google Cloud Shell. So I can go here and I can look in Cup and I can see Terry.text.
Yeah,
so if I want to scroll at my own pace, I can double click this. And I think that, again, I'm still getting some like offline nonsense because I still don't know why, but probably my VPN. Yeah. But I can see that if I want to download this, then I can download Terry.text, Google Shell, I don't care. And look at this, I'm downloading Terry.text. So, yeah, so this is cool. Like, I really like that you can do this in the browser because, like, yeah, you can install it, like, on your system. Yeah. But if you just want to generate a quick password list, like, who cares?
On my screen, I have the same list that I generated. And so you can see, like, it comes up with a lot of different stuff. And it just orders it kind of alphabetically. And we can kind of see where it came up with the stuff. So it's different years and Charles, and I think Charles was the kid's, like, name or something like that. So this gives you a really good list, but it is still, as you can see, kind of short.
Hey, check out my password list.
Now we're looking at your list.
Idiot 2003, Frothy Neo. We got Fang the dog. We got What is this one?
And I know this like seems really silly, but like just doing kind of the basic OSINT investigation we did, I feel like you could a hacker could easily get. Maybe not the password 100% of the time, but a good shot at it.
Yeah, especially like, look, if they did like, listen, I'm going to be so clever, but I'm not going to capitalize Booger, but I will capitalize Neo. Yeah. It's like, this is like really digging into like the mind of Booger Neo.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so like I said, this list is a little, on the short side.
Well, that's the thing. We usually, so one of the great things about these generative things is it'll start with a relatively small list of seed words or seed things, and we can use other like word manglers to enhance the complexity and add different rules to the word list and make potentially massive word lists relatively easily. Like, what were you, which one are you going to show?
Oh, okay, yeah. So going back to my screen. So the next tool that I was going to use to further this list is actually, no, it's not this one. It is Wordlister. So this is another terminal-based tool. It's been updated somewhat recently, 4 months ago, and it's only 2 years old. It does some things that, basically, this will allow us to modify the other lists we generated with cup. I think cup could actually natively do some of this. Like cup natively already does delete speech.
Well, it's better though to start if you're not sure if they delete spitted it or not, spoken it or not. Then you might as well start with the original list as a seed list, and not do any of those wacky permutations at the end. Let cup do what cup is good at, and just make a big list, and then run it through Wordlister and add options. So like you'll take that word list and it'll turn it into a huge word list where you do capital letters and uppercases, so all the permutations. That's what Wordlister is good at. So I find it's best to use cup to create the seed list, and then Wordlister to create the much bigger list that you can burn through very quickly.
And from what I understand, Wordlister is also a little more optimized. So cup is great for creating that seed list, and then you can use Wordlister as the expander to that. So you can take it from like the 7 or 10,000 words you're gonna get with cup and turn it into 70 or 700,000, right? So to get started, it's just the same deal. Just git clone, and then copy the link here. So just Wordlister, and then we're gonna have to do the same deal CDN to Wordlister. Okay, and then to run Wordlister, we can just do it's Python 3 again, because this is why I'm saying, honestly, if you want to learn hacking, learn a little Python and look at all these programs, because so many of them are written in Python, right? Wordlister.py, and then we're just going to do tac help, because that's where they have their manual.
Cool.
And so this kind of show off like the kinds of things we can do. So the what we absolutely have to have is an input file. So that's going to be the cup list we already generated. Permutations is how many variations. So it's going to take each word and combine them, right? So how many maximum number of permutations do we want? And this is what I was talking about before. So if you do know, hey, this website requires a minimum length password of 8 characters, then I can set the minimum password length to 8.
Yep.
And
that's
so
useful.
Something an attacker would do is they just go to the website and try to set up a password, right? So like in the CEO scenario, let's say I would just go to the corporate login page and pretend I'm registering an account or whatever. And if it allows me to try to register an account, and it's like, I put in a 2-character password, does it accept it? And then I try a 40-character password, does it accept it? And then you just bracket it down until it either tells you, hey, you need to be within these character ranges. Also, sometimes I found that those passwords will tell you have to have a certain, a special character or stuff like that. So if you know that, then you can just integrate that into your word list, right? You're, in fact, in some ways making it easier. Like, the statistics is harder because you have that larger character set, but still it makes it a little easier. And then, so the other things we can do here, the really cool thing about Wordlister is cores. So I can dictate specifically how many cores I'm going to allow the computer to use to run this. Very, very useful. Because, if you are generating a massive list, like that's going to be gigabytes, that's going to be like, a billion passwords or something, then you might want to limit your computer so it doesn't crash, or you can actually do other things at the same time. But yeah, so it does lead speech, capital, and lowercase, and then we can append words onto either side. So what does that actually look like? So Python 3. Oh wait, no, I'm gonna be lazy. There we go. Okay. Anyway, so word lister dash h, and then so we have to do these required ones. So our tac input is going to be. I'm using another list, so I'm gonna also real quick show you how I can take these word lists that we found online. So, for example, the sec list, security list that we have here. The 10 million most common passwords, right? Say we wanted to take that and modify it and use that. So that's what I'm going to show real quick. Because I don't want to blow up my computer right now, I'm not going to use the full list. I just made a demo list, which is, I can show you right here. My demo list is just like the top 20 or so of those passwords, just to kind of show you like how much you can really expand these lists real quick. So we're going to take demo list .txt, and then we need to dictate the permutations. I found 3 is kind of a good mix, so it's going to take 3 of those words and combine them together, and you can see you get really large passwords that way. So and then remember that space, because it doesn't like it when you don't give it a space. And then so the last 2 are the min and max. So as Kody was saying, a common min is 8 characters, and then a common max is going to be 32, just because
that's a lot.
Yeah. No one's gonna use that many. Like, you could cut that down if you wanted to, right? And then let's just go ahead and say we're gonna do some leet speech. So we're gonna take all those permutations and also do leet speech variations of them, right? Now, just so I don't fry this while I'm also recording on it, I'm gonna limit cores to 1.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah. Also, you can dictate the output file, but it should just save it as a file automatically here. Yep. Output.txt. So as you
Had
saw,
it. What's in there?
Yeah, it actually generated that really fast. Okay. Make this huge for all of us. Oh, look, you're fired. What is this? But yeah, so we can see leet speech of football. And remember, just for a little reference, wait, not license agreement? This demo list, this little list right here, is what we've turned into this entire list. And as you can see, there is quite a lot of passwords here. Like, that's an insane number of passwords.
Yeah.
Is there
this mangler can create like over 1 billion passwords.
Yeah.
Like, I've had it happen before where I'm just like, that's too
Is there an easy way on text editor to just see what line you're on?
Probably, but I'm not used to that.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sure someone.
Either way, there's
comments. A lot. But yeah, so I don't know if you actually want to try that password list.
Okay, so do we want to show an example? Are
Yeah.
we at that point?
Yeah,
Okay,
well,
cool.
we can show an example of what. So, like, I just took, these common passwords here, and I mangled them, and then I sent that list to Kody already. And let's see, like, what an attack like this might look like. This is better than some of the versions we do, but this is still like a little condensed down word list, just so we're not brute forcing a Raspberry Pi for the next 3 hours.
Right. Okay. So over on my screen, I think we're
Which
still
we're now looking at.
Yeah, I think we're still waiting out my word lister, because I created one as well. I used my terry.txt. I allowed 2 permutations. I did the capital permutation as well, and then I just set a minimum of 8 and a maximum of 16. So it's chugging away, and I will not wait for it.
And I will say that is probably one of the more common things I think people do. If you were to just take a English dictionary and capitalize the first character on it. That is the most common. When it requires a capital character, you capitalize the first character. Like, so.
I don't think this is...
And, actually, while
there's anything in this. Is this empty? I think this is empty. There's nothing in this.
Oh, no. What did you do?
Oh, no. Well, I mean, it's still not done running, so I'm just, like, getting it to...
So,
it doesn't matter. But... Oh, wait. It's terry.text. That's
so I'm going to answer another question real quick while you're doing that. So back on my screen.
Oh, sure.
One of the questions we get a lot is, okay, this is great if they speak English, right? So I will say that the common password list, I think, comes from the entire world. But yes, you're correct. If you are trying to use like an English dictionary or something, that is a potential problem when the person speaks another language. So if you know a specific language they know, then you can look up like this. Dictionaries in foreign languages.
Oh, don't worry, Michael. You're going to have plenty of stuff to talk about while we wait for this to chew through the massive password list you sent me. Okay, so let's very quickly try to identify what's the situation here. We need to identify the Raspberry Pi that I changed the password to and no longer remember. And the way that we're going to do it is we're going to locate it on the network via port 22, which is typically the SSH port. So we're going to do sudo nmap p22. We're going to do the whole network range, so 192.168.1024. And we're also going to do -- open. Why do we do that?
Because we're looking for open ports.
Right, because otherwise this is going to tell us the status of every single closed or filtered or non-existent port out there. So if we want to see every single thing on the network, great. But if we only want to see stuff that's open, then we run this. Wait, for Kali? Oh, wait. How am I? Oh, get me out of here. Wait. What is going on? Okay,
where are you?
I was like, all right, so I was logged into that. I was testing the password before. Okay, sorry. I had an inception moment where I was like,
you were already inside the Raspberry Pi.
That must have been very scary for everyone, but it is coming up on Halloween. Or no, I guess it already happened. So, all right, so where was I? That threw me off so much.
We were port scanning for an open SSH port on the Raspberry Pi.
I can't believe it was port scanning for itself. It must have been so confused.
Yes.
So port 22, and then we want 192.168.1024 -- open. I was just like, why is it not a deeply, deeply confusing moment? Okay, so we're starting our nmap scan. We are looking for anything with port 22 open, and hopefully I got the network range right. I don't think it's 192.168.0. No, okay, I was right. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so we identified our target. It's a Raspberry Pi. It's got a port 22 open. Juicy. Sweet. Interesting. And if we want to do some other nmap stuff, we can learn more about this particular device if we really want to. So we're like, oh, cool, a Raspberry Pi. Like, what is it running? So I know that it's running Kali Linux, but if I want to do SV, then I can try to like learn about the services that are running on it, and it's resisting. I don't like that.
And we're getting low on time. We're already 50 minutes in.
Wow. Okay, whatever. All right, so let's go ahead and launch an attack against this now that we've located it. So we know that this is its IP address. So we're going to use my favorite program, Shitrix.
What a great name.
Shitrix, hooray. They want the capital H. Hooray. So this has a lot of great options, and I already know that this is Kali Linux. Let's say we poked around and we figured out it's Kali Linux we're up against. And we need to break in. So we already know some of the command we're going to be using. We know the username. It's Kali. Yeah. That's the default one. So we're going to set the username string to capital L, Kali. All right, so that's set. Now we need to add a password list. So we have strings and lists. So here for the password list, we're going to do -k, but lowercase k, and we're going to use Michael's gigantic password list that he sent me. Thank you so much.
Output with 2 T's.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm glad you did that. Otherwise, it would have been overwritten by what I know.
Yes.
So then we also need to define some stuff. We can do the host, the range. Okay, we already did the host, so that's fine.
Yeah, and to be clear, that was my attempt to make a shorter password list too. Just a demo version.
Okay. There we go. So we can do -t. That's threads.
Okay.
The default is set to 4. Let's crank this up to 8, just because, like, you know, maybe it'll be faster.
Yeah.
So
Maybe we'll crash the Pi. Who knows?
well, we're not. Maybe yeah. T8, and is it capital T? I have to double.
If
check.
I recall,
no, it's not.
Citrix is a little slow too, right?
It can be. So we could be here for a while. That's.
Okay.
Oh wow! It got so
It
mad.
got very upset.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it yelled at me. So -L Cali -K. Okay. You know what? Just go at your own pace. There's no need to be rude. Okay.
I'm saying something's not mounted.
No, that's just an insult.
Oh.
So
Oh yeah, clearly. Okay, yeah.
maybe do you want quotes? Why do you gotta be? Why
Why
like
don't you
that?
just tell me what I'm doing wrong, right?
Yeah, no, it would be useful. Thanks. When I say favorite, by the way, that was not actually true. Oh, right. Well, for one, it needs a target. So let's go.
That is a useful thing to give it.
Yeah. Hey. You could have just told me that I forgot, you know, the target. All right. So up here, we can see that the target is going to be -H for -host. And do I still have it? No, I don't. I copied this for no reason. So I got to go back and delete that now and then add the target. All right. So target's going to be, where did you go? Here.
Up there.
Target's right here. All right.
That's only 8,400
Yeah, and it's like at the end. Thanks, Michael.
from a list of like 10 that we started off with.
Oh my gosh, you're right. It's going to be ridiculous. Let's try 16. We're going to get a lot of like, so basically this is going to be a a compromise between like how many threads do we want to try all at the same time versus like how likely is this to just give up and crash?
It is only at 71.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't tell me we were going to do it with this. I thought we were going to use Wordlists.
Like Hydra or
on
something like that? No, this is an online attack,
Yeah.
sir. Like that. This means that...
Okay, yeah, this is an example of what an online attack would be, and this is why you would need to do a highly specific attack.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's going to take a while. But you need to stay on that screen, you think, to show them when we find it? Because it doesn't automatically stop when we find it.
Oh, no, it doesn't. We're in for the whole ride.
Okay.
So unless you specifically indicate, by the way, on this program that you want it to stop when it finds a first positive result, it's just going to keep going even after it finds it. So you're like locked in for the whole ride. In this case, 8,406. So we're congratulations, guys. We're switching over to a Twitch screen where, based on some feedback, we've decided to let you guys just watch our computers slowly crack this password for up to 6 hours.
Okay, yeah, we are running out of time, but some of the things I wanted to talk about, I can't really show right now. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have to do a second live stream on Wordlists if y'all like this one. But essentially, the other things I was going to talk about in this live stream is how we can take those lists of foreign language dictionaries that we can find online and use them with Wordlister to create our own custom word list in a specific language, and then, you know, do some lead speech on them and add in names and stuff like that. You know, because it occurred to me, like, I remember when I was in grade school, like, my German language teacher was like, oh yeah, I could never be hacked because my password's in German. And I was like, the only thing you've done is told me what language to make the word list.
Yeah, I like it when people brag about the format of their password. It's like, well, my password is really hard because it's basically like 2 words.
Yeah.
Both of them capitalized and then a number. Like,
or what I love
narrows it down substantially.
When they're like,
thank you.
Oh, my password's impossible to guess. It's 19 characters long.
It's like, that makes it actually quite possible.
Yes, it makes it a lot easier. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
But then the other thing I was going to show off is the Mentalist, which is both of these tools we looked at are terminal based. However, you know, for newbies or just people that are more graphically oriented, it's not as friendly. So Mentalist is a GUI interfaced version of basically Wordlister, and it just makes it easier. I think it has a few more permutations that it can use as well. But that's the kind of stuff we will show off in a future live stream on Wordlists. And we're only 500 in?
Yeah, only 500.
Are you going to actually make us sit through this entire
I don't
list?
think we actually... I mean, clearly we don't have the time.
No, we don't.
No. So we can show you guys what this looks like eventually, but this is actually like how I'm getting back into the Raspberry Pi, because at this point I definitely
I'm going to switch away from your screen.
Forgotten what the password was. Yeah, no, sure.
Yeah.
So, this is how, in our case, I'm going to be able to get back into our Raspberry Pi, or anybody might be able to attack a service based on one of the word lists that we generated today.
Right.
And again, this was made by profiling a target, creating a list of seed words, and then using a bunch of permutations with word lister to be able to make that word list much more variable and have a lot of the common kind of, I guess, security mechanisms people try to bake into their passwords, like random capitalization, leet speak, or just some addition of a significant number to the beginning or the end or the middle of a password.
And I think one of the more powerful uses for this is like when you need a word list to crack a WPA handshake or something like that, because oftentimes you have information from the SSID of the network, so that you have an idea of like who resides at the location, so you look up their profiles and stuff like that. And the one thing I neglected to mention about Mentalist that's also really cool is it can make John the Ripper and Hashcat rules. So that's very important. As you see, as these password lists get larger and larger, you're going to run into limitations with just how big the file is and manipulating that huge file. So what you can do is make those rules, and then John the Ripper and Hashcat will use those rules to generate each of those guesses as it hashes it and compares it, right? And also, when you start getting into that side of things, that's also where you would make like a John the Ripper build, or you would use some server equipment, and you'd have a bunch of GPUs, and maybe older ones that you got for $100 or so each, and in that way they can do this in massively paralleled attacks where they're hashing thousands of passwords every second and comparing them. But obviously, it's not going to work on an online attack like we're showing on Kody's laptop, because that's rate limited, right? That requires you already have the hash, and you're just comparing the hash you're generating from this word list to the hash that you already have, and waiting until you get one that's an exact match.
Yeah. By the way, we are now 1/8 of the way through this password list.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So when you're doing online attacks, it's almost always going to be slower than doing an offline password attack. If you have access to a hash of something and you can just use your computer's raw processing power to go after it, it's pretty much always going to be faster.
And if you're at all confused what we mean about hashing versus encoding and encryption, check out our previous live stream on that subject. I'll put a link up in the corner, because a lot of people do get confused, because word lists are generally used to create a hash and then compare that hash to a hash you already have, or in this case, trying to brute force a login page.
Yep, exactly. So hopefully this answered a lot of the questions we've been getting about how to generate a password list, or where good password lists come from, or why do you use such terrible password lists when you do demonstrations.
I will show you why.
Yeah.
This is
using like a
right
semi-real. This is even a small password. It's just 8,000 passwords.
Yes.
Like, so if we were like demonstrating, if you guys want to see like real passwords, then like, okay, here you go. Like, it's gonna take like hours.
Yeah.
And this one, this one is small, so it's not gonna take an hour, like hours. But using a real password list that we generated that actually has a shot at like getting every password out there is going to take forever.
We could record another live stream before that password list is going to get done.
We could, we definitely could. Yeah, so that is why. There are also, I hope you guys enjoyed the little intro to Google Cloud Shell. I just discovered that recently, and for running a couple of these tools, just like right off the bat, this is, I guess, included with every Gmail account. So not everybody is a fan of Gmail, but it is pretty cool that if you have an account, you can just run this Debian virtual machine, try out some of these tools. It has Python pre-installed, and I find that it's a good way for maybe people who aren't so technical, that don't want to start configuring their own computer and potentially messing it up, to just try these things out without needing to really commit to having their own machine. Wow, that is so slow.
Yeah, and in the follow-up live stream, we could even show like how you might use a tool like Maltego to do better OSINT investigations, and also you can use Maltego to potentially find if that person's password is already leaked in a database somewheres. So stay tuned for that future episode, and we'll go into some of that stuff in greater detail.
You know what's sad? I remember taking the password from the end of this password list.
Yeah, that's your fault.
Yep. Should have done it from the beginning.
Yeah.
I do demos like this all the time. I was like, oh, I want it to be dramatic, so I'll get it from the end. I'm like, oh, wait, this is an online password attack, and this is going to take forever.
Exactly.
We should have done this in the beginning. Oops. We would have been done at the end.
That's why this is
But,
a live stream.
Yeah, but anyway, this has been a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the resources we put out today. If you came in a little bit late, then you can always check out the recording on the Security Forward YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/SecurityFWD. Also, there's other great content from Varonis if you guys like this. We also have the threat update by my occasional co-host Killian, who also works at Varonis, who is on the Varonis brand channel, showing some of the interesting updates we have from all these companies out there who are actually under attack and reporting to us the kind of threats that are really out there. So the threat update is really cool, and you should check it out if you're interested in malware or what kind of threats are actually affecting businesses out in the wild. So
Fascinating stuff.
Cool. So we will see you guys next time. Thank you again for hanging with us, asking great questions, and participating. And we'll see you then. Bye.